season. MLS Season Pass started up. It was a new way to watch games. Really enjoyable. Brian, what were your big three things that you noticed from this opening weekend?
Yeah, for me, I think the first big takeaway that I had was Seattle Sounders. They look very much back. Last year, I think there was a pretty surprising drop off after they won the CCL. They just really couldn't seem to recover. Obviously, the João Paulo injury is a big part of that as well. But they came out really hot against a team in Colorado that generally is pretty poor on the road, and they just completely dominated them 4-0. Hebert scored in his debut for them. Jordan Morris looks like he also could be back and really scoring goals. I mean, obviously the two goals that he scored were a little bit comical, I'd say, this week, but just the fact that those kind of goals and he's in those situations and getting those goals in the net, I think is just a good sign moving forward for him, because I think last year and recently he's had quite a bit of a drop off. So he might be back as well.
Yeah, and I think it puts him above Christian Pulisic in the left wing pecking order for 2026, right?
Yeah, probably. I was going to say that'll for all the U.S. men's national team stands out there that are listening to Dropping Points MLS Fantasy,
and Christian Roldan for that matter. You know, he had a pretty big game too.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I mean, the whole team looked really, really strong, front to back. I think they're going to be very fantasy relevant moving forward. At least from that initial showing, that convinced me that they're looking strong, rested, and ready to really show some people up after last season. The second takeaway I had was Austin FC's back line looked really, really atrocious. It definitely was impacted by Cascante's injury. It looks like he's going to be out about 8 weeks. And they might have to stick with Kip Keller, who was involved in all 3 goals against, giving up 3 goals to an expansion club, in your own house. I would say that's a huge let up. And it's a huge red flag for me in terms of just, I'm probably going to be targeting Austin FC's back line in fantasy, probably week to week until they prove me otherwise. Then my last take is Toronto also looks a bit, there's a lot of hype around them going into this year, which is all their experience on the wings with Bernadeschi and Insigne, and Insigne's hurt as well. And then they gave up 3 goals to DC United, one of the worst teams in the league last year. And so it looks like Toronto might not have improved as much as I think a lot of people thought going into this season. And it's already seeming to get a little bit worse with Insigne out. I mean, that you can see that maybe Toronto FC was built sort of on a house of cards, and one of the main cards just knocked out of the house. So we'll kind of see where things go. But I mean, there's another team that I might be targeting week to week as well, just because it seems like they even with Sean John, Matt Hedges, they're still conceding goals, even to I would say one of the poorer attacks last year in DC United.
Yeah, so my 3 things from this past weekend are the Philadelphia Union are in a class of their own. My poor Columbus Crew, they started off that first half so well. Nonce's system looked to be working. We threw the Philadelphia Union off. Then Jim Curtin went into the locker room, motivated his guys a little bit, and they came back out and beat the Columbus Crew 4-1. Daniel Gazdag, 2 goals, 2 assists, and a brace for Julian Carranza. The Union didn't score 4 in a game until July 8th last year, and they did that game 1 this year. So watch out, MLS. Also, New York City FC, they struggled without a true number 9. I talked about Talish Magno, so they need to do some work on that front as well. I won't be very high on that New York City FC attack until they figure out who their number 9 is going to be and how they can get Talish Magno back out to the left wing. And then Nashville, they look like the stalwart defensive unit that they have been since joining MLS in 2020. Had a shutout against New York City FC and have led the league over the past couple years in goals against per 90. Been one of the best defensive units since 2020.
Yep.
And then something that really probably shook up the MLS fantasy world, it was kind of hard to pick goal scorers this past weekend because 7 guys scored their first goals in MLS. Klic, DiPietro, Krzysztof, Borgelin, how do you say this guy's name on Cincinnati? Wobodo?
In Wobodo, I think.
I think it's Wobodo. I think the N is silent. I think it's Wobodo. I think so. Klaus and Mosquera. So 7 guys scored their first goal. It's going to be hard to predict that. So that's going to throw a lot of people off. But those are my 3 big things from this weekend.